I've got a sheet of Scope out here that we can do some practice work on. Same exact material that I used for the base. So what we'll do is just pick out a brush here. I'm going to go with a little bigger brush this time because we're going to make these larger so you can see them. I've got blue liner and brown liner out on the palette, the transparent red, and then the ruby and the dried blood. What these are out here for is, in effect, I'm using these as water maybe to thin down the blood instead of just using water. What I'm going to do is take some of, you can see how that transparent red, see how that's even just now out on the palette, it's already got that kind of very viscousy texture right there. Makes it perfect for your dry blood. Now here, this is mixing it with the brown liner. So you can see that's a little bit warmer. Now I'm also going to, I'm going to grab another brush and I'll mix some transparent red with this blue liner. And it may not look very different on camera, on film, I don't know, but this is much more of a purple than this. That's why I like to have the two available to me. Because sometimes I just like to get a little variety in the warmth of the blood tones. Now, here is that water, which you can see how it makes it even more transparent. You can also make it even a little bit darker. So already, this is what I like to do, is have these mixtures out on the palette so I can just select from these as I'm working instead of having to mix something new all the time. Mixture's already out there, and what that does is it lets me work. So I've got some of the lighter blood here, some of the darker, more coagulated blood over here. Especially when you get down to, say, the body parts here. Now I've got some of my gloss medium right here, and let's take some of this blue mix and put that in there. And you can see, even like I'm smashing it down a little bit with the brush, see how that just kind of, there's this, see that right there? That, in effect, a lot like a blood drop. So you can have that hanging off of a sword or off of a miniature. That's fantastic. Now you could, I think some tutorials suggest you use maybe a bit of fishing line or dental floss as kind of an armature in a sense for this blood drop, but it's pretty set all by itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with the thinner, lighter color first. It's just going to be kind of some basic blood. So I'm going to mix some of the dried blood, ruby, and a little bit of that realistic water. I'll just do a little patch right here. And I get some of that off of the brush. And the idea is, here it's big enough I can even use my finger, but I'll do this sometimes on swords. Let's say if I want to smear the blood around, well, why not just use your hand and smear it around? So let's get this a little bit darker now. Now there's probably a lot of light reflecting from all the different camera light on this super glossy medium. So I'm going to take some of the very thick blood medium right here. This is with the gloss medium mixed in. You see how there's it's heavier in some spots, lighter in others. The color itself is darker in some spots than in others. You could even use a, say you want to make finer markings. Let's do that. And here it's big enough that I can actually let some of this just kind of swirl together. I can really have a thick, nice thick pile of blood here, but see where how it's thinner and lighter in this, and well, now when I go over the top of that like this, just with a few splatters and drops, this kind of looks, it looks more smeary. It looks more layered instead of just if it's all the same exact darkness of red. Well, it's not really going to look coagulated. It's not going to look fresh. It's just going to look like red paint splattered. And the idea here is just to make this. Let's get a little bit of the transparent red out. Just let these random things happen. And then again, this is the most basic. So it's just kind of working the edges around, and what that does is it creates a splatter. It's pretty simple, similar to this one that's right here underneath the sword blade. And this is just where the blood's kind of dropped down. And it's kind of dropped down and splatter almost like a crater type. It hits here and splatters out. But let's say I'm going to do something on the end of a sword blade. I'll just use this sharp edge here. So I've got gel medium. This is pretty thick. I'll just pile it up on the end of the sword blade. And now grab some of my thinner colors, smaller brush, and what I'll start to do is I'm going to start to pull. Just going to start pulling some of this down. It'll be a little hard if this is a very small miniature. Obviously this will be a little bit more difficult. But see how that's being dragged along, literally just dragging this pile of blood along. Now let's do the same thing where I need a little bit of this sort of transparent effect right here. That's what's nice about having the dried blood and the ruby out here, because it does provide me with a nice slick way to do this. Not quite so dark blood, but you can see. Yeah, now you can see how much that's built up around that edge. That's that gloss medium. That's just fantastic stuff. So it really gives you a nice mess on the end of that sword. or a butcher's knife, as the case may be. You can take it as far as you want. You can smear it with your hand like this, again, just like I did down here, smearing this around. And we have our dark color like that. We can do more blood drops on the end. So right away, you've got two very fun effects. Now, to try and do some random spatters, telling you about these craft brushes here. Well, when a brush gets to be in this kind of a state, maybe you're not really so upset about, let's say, take a scissors to it, like so. Watch your fingers. And what I'm going to do is start cutting some of these bristles down, and I'm going to make myself a splatter brush. Now you can buy brushes that are like this. I think they're called stippling brushes. But again, I already have a brush that's gotten way more than 50 cents of use out of it. Why not just create my own stippling brush? It's my own splatter brush now. Oh, and you can probably use some of that as static grass. Now this is going to be relatively stiff bristles, and I am going to start this out. Let's see if I can make sure you can see this, because I'm going to need two hands. Let's see if that works. Okay. That should, hopefully that won't fall down. But now, what I'll do is I'll try and have blood that kind of splatters out this way. See that? So looking at it's more of a, it's more of a cleaver, really. You can see from what I've done, it's much more like this, where I just piled up the gel / gloss medium and then pulled it down, even watering it down in some areas. So I've got some of that here. Let's make sure that you can actually see it. So I'm going to put it out here, water it down just enough so that it flows. See, I've got some dark that can be mixed with, but also want to make sure I have enough of my lighter red, the transparent red. Now get that mixed in with the gloss medium also. And I like to mount, usually, when I can, mount a figure on these dowel rods, because this is the advantage. I can hold it upside down like this. And as I did here, I'm going to focus really on that pointed tip of the cleaver. I'm going to try and really pile that up on the end of it, which means I got to pile it up on the brush. Make sure, yeah, now you can sort of see that. So look at that big old pile of blood and guts right there. Thin this down, get the brush back to more of a point. And now start to carry that across the cleaver, kind of almost like it's a crater Like it's rays emerging, those blast rays emerging from a crater. But where it, here I'm actually going to go a little more transparent, almost like it's a wash. See the little rivulets of blood, they get lighter. That's nice. Right, they're just kind of again exploding out of where this must have just hooked into something. So we're gonna go flip this around and do the same thing on the other side. What I don't want to do, I don't want to wipe out all of the, don't want to wipe out the entire sword blade. So it's important to keep your brush with a little more transparency to it. Nice and thin. See how that, and it's irregular too. See, I'm kind of going off in this direction. And sometimes the rivulets kind of, say they split and kind of go off in their own direction. And let's, I'm going even lighter. What I want to do is, that's what I want to do right there. See, the edge was just, it was too hard of an edge. I want to soften that down by feathering that out. So now on the hands here, now this is where you could also do a blood splatter thing. What you'd have to do is set this up so that it wouldn't, you have a second hand free with the splatter brush, and then you could have it sort of splatter across the hand. You're going to have to kind of do that sort of manually here with the brush in the standard way, because it's just, I don't have a second set of hands, and the camera angle would be really bad. You wouldn't really be able to see much of it anyways, so I'm just going to kind of go standard way, but just like I did here on the blade, trying to have these rivulets of blood that come out. The underside of the hand, I want some there, and I'm going to have some coagulating on the hand too, but keeping that somewhat transparent. I don't want to wipe out the hand. It's more like some of the blood just has kind of gone down between his fingers. That's what it's supposed to be. That's supposed to just necessarily cover the whole hand. Now you can go heavier with the blood splatter too. It could splatter down onto his leg. We could do some of that. This, I think it would be even more transparent. So I put my first big glob of it there, and then let gravity kind of do the rest. And again, working as transparently as I can. This is something you'll have to get used to. See, even here, it's gonna be down on top of the shoe. Right here. See another one. Just right there, carry that down. I think his hand right there where it's closest to the blade probably needs a little more. So feather that out again. Yeah, I'm going to grab a little more. That gel medium there. Let's make sure I've got enough dirt coat. I'm going to actually put some of the blue out on the palette. I'm going to see if I can get the tip of that to have even more of a drop off of the end. So I don't want it to get too thin. I don't want to thin it down too much. See that goop off the end? Just even some more. There we go. See, it looks more like a big drop at the end there instead of just a point. So here, a little bit of the same. I also want to think in terms of, okay, what would these sleeves do? Well, cloth would kind of absorb the blood. Skin doesn't really absorb the blood so much. It just sort of just sits on top of the skin and just gets smeared on the skin. Whereas with clothes, it's really going to soak in. You know, the armor here on the side, well, it's not going to soak into the armor. It's just going to sit there. So try to indicate that. And now this is all actually dry, but because of all of the gloss medium that we put in, it's going to stay nice and glossy. But instead of just, I think what some people is they paint it red or pink or whatever and then slap some gloss varnish over the top. I've done that too. It is not the same thing, because what you've done here is you've suspended this color inside the medium. So what happens is the light kind of goes through the medium and all the way, and it kind of goes through your paint, so it looks that much more translucent. Especially where there's kind of the guts and all that going on. You want that to be somewhat kind of translucent and slimy. Okay, so we have our body up on top, our impaled body. We have some of the blood drips from that. We have the face and the tongue. We did the interior of the chest cavity here. And we've even done our cleaver. So we'll set him aside, and we'll go back to the base and add some blood effects there.